Hi dear friends, welcome back to Plants and Lucia. My name is Lucia and this right here is Pipa. As Pipa right here loves light, today we talk about natural lighting for houseplants. Okay, coming up. Whether you are coming back or this is your first time in this channel, thank you so much for watching this video. This channel is all about houseplants. So if you want to learn how to take care of them, how to display them, or even how to connect with them, make sure to subscribe so we can see each other every Tuesday and Thursday and talk about plants. But now, let's get to the video. So to understand a little better, let's talk a little bit about biology. And don't worry, we're gonna make it very simple. So what happens is that plants absorb light and then they transform it into energy for them during the photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is performed in special cells called chloroplasts. So plants that want more light tend to have more chloroplasts. For example, this one right here. So if you think about it, this is a pretty cool ability. Plants convert light into energy. It is actually through plants that the sunlight is converted into usable energy. This usable energy then is consumed by animals like us. But anyways, let's talk about our houseplants. Of course, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the position of your houseplant and where you put it in your house. As an indoor gardener, it is important for us to know that light coming through a window is less strong than light outside. And the intensity of the sunlight coming in drops as you move the plant away from the window. So a simple move of 1 meter further away from the window can drop the light intensity by more than 50%. This is very important to remember when you're deciding where to put your plant. Orientation is very important too. So depending on what your window is facing, north, south, west or east, the intensity of the sunlight will be different. And I can tell you, when I started with plants and people would tell me, oh yeah, is your window south facing window, west facing window? I was like, what are they talking about? But this actually does make a difference. So let's look at these directions and what it means. A room that has a north-facing window tends to have the weakest light intensity and the most amount of shade during the day. In this kind of window, it is actually possible to grow some plants that are shade-loving plants. For example, some kind of ferns, the Lactea or the peace lily. But this may be only possible in the summer. In the winter, when we have less sunlight, these windows are not the best for plant growth, even when you have shade-loving plants. So keep this in mind. North-facing window, very little light. Now we go to the other side, south-facing windows. Because the sun follows a slightly southern east to west arc across the sky, plants that are close to a south-facing window will receive a lot of sunlight. So I usually place my succulents there or plants that really like full sunlight. Remember, south-facing windows, you get the most amount of sunlight. So close to these windows, you can place full sun-loving plants there. Or if you have a room with a south-facing window, you can also place other kinds of plants, but just make sure that they get indirect sunlight. So you can filter the sunlight with a curtain or just put the plant a little bit away from the window so the plant gets the sunlight that she needs, but not a lot of sunlight. East-facing windows benefit from the morning sunlight. These rays are not quite strong. So if you have a room with an east-facing window, you can place plants that need moderate sunlight. So bright indirect sunlight or bright filtered sunlight. Because the morning sunlight is super nice and it's not as strong. So just like the east-facing window is for the morning sunlight, west-facing windows will get a lot of afternoon sunlight. And remember, afternoon sunlight can be very strong in the summer. Although it's not as strong as in the south-facing window, the west-facing window is very good for full sun-loving plants. This is a pretty fun part because you actually become a scientist in your own home. You can actually measure the light intensity in your house by different ways. One way is to look at the shadow. If in your room you have a well-defined, sharp shadow, that tends to mean that you have a bright, intense sunlight coming in, while a fuzzy, indeterminate shadow means moderate sunlight. When you have no shadow at all, that tends to mean that there is low light intensity. Ultimately, the best way to know if your plant is getting enough sunlight or too much sunlight is the plant itself. Look at the signs for too much sun. Depending on your plant, if you have yellow leaves or burnt leaves, that might mean that you have a lot of sunlight. But of course, check with your plant because every plant has different signs. For example, one of my calatheas started getting burnt leaves, and then I discovered that this calathea needs less sunlight, so I had to move her away from the window. Now she's doing better. One way to know if your plant is not getting enough sunlight is actually leggy growth. For example, my bunny ears cactus, this was one of the first plants that we ever brought home and we didn't know so much about plants. So I placed my cactus in a very shaded spot. So he started growing like these leggy kind of arms. And then I discovered that yes, he needed more sunlight. So leggy growth can also mean that your plant is not getting enough sunlight. Okay, my friends, so this is a general introduction to natural light for houseplants. If you have any other tips about this or any questions about houseplant light, please let me know in the comments so we can all learn together. Of course, if you would like to be part of this community, you're always welcome. So make sure to subscribe so we can see each other every Tuesday and Thursday and talk about plants. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!